Hey, welcome to NFL Nexus, where we connect all the dots across the league. Today, we're diving deep into the Indianapolis Colts, and boy, they are at a fascinating crossroads right now. We're going to kick things off with the retirement of a really respected veteran, and then use that as our jumping-off point to map out a whole strategic plan for the team's future, especially with the draft breathing down their necks. And listen, if you're into this kind of deep dive NFL analysis, stuff that gets past the surface level takes, then help us out. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give this explainer a like, and for sure, let me know what you think in the comments. Seriously, I read all of them.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Our story really starts here with this announcement that dropped back on April 2nd. Former Colts linebacker Anthony Walker Jr., a name I'm sure a lot of you remember very, very well, he's decided to hang him up. Now, on the surface, you might think, okay, player's career's over. That happens. But for us, this is the catalyst. It's like that one single thread that, when you start to pull it, the whole much bigger picture of the Colts' current situation and their future path starts to unravel.
So here's the game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with Walker's journey, then use that to really get into the nitty-gritty of the Colts roster reality right now. From there, we'll map out a potential future with a really detailed mock draft, and then wrap it all up with a final grade. So the bottom line is, a really solid, really respected NFL career has officially wrapped up. Think about it. 30 years old, 9 seasons in the league, playing for 4 different teams, and he earned over $15 million doing it. Anthony Walker Jr. is moving on. And really, it marks the end of an era for a guy who was, for a time, a truly key piece of that Colts defense.
And don't get it twisted. This was an incredibly productive career. You just don't hang around in the NFL for 9 seasons by accident. He was this consistent, reliable guy on the field. Didn't matter if he was in Indy, Cleveland, or anywhere else. And just look at these numbers, right? Over 100 games played, started 83 of them, almost 600 total tackles. I mean, that's a body of work that really speaks for itself. It shows you the kind of impact player he was day in and day out.
But, to really get a feel for his career, you gotta go back to the very beginning. His whole journey started right there in Indianapolis, and he was a guy that, let's be honest, a lot of people probably overlooked on draft day.
And this timeline just lays it all out perfectly. He was a 5th-round pick, number 161 overall, way back in 2017. Now, guys picked in that range, they're often just fighting to make the roster. But Walker, he proved real quick he was way more than that. I mean, by his 2nd year, he was a full-time starter, a leader on that Colts defense for 3 straight seasons. After his time in Indy, yeah, he had those stints with the Browns, a year with the Dolphins. He even circled back to the Colts practice squad for a minute before finishing up with Tampa Bay. It was a true journeyman's path, but it all kicked off right there in Indy.
Now, this is what's really interesting here. You look at these numbers and you see just how productive and how central he was during his 4 years with the Colts. These weren't just empty stats. He was the heart and soul of that defense. 48 starts, over 340 tackles in the regular season, 19 tackles for loss, and he even snagged 3 interceptions. He was exactly the kind of smart, dependable player that coaches just love to build their entire schemes around.
But then, after he left Indy for Cleveland, his career just took a really tough turn. It's the brutal side of this sport, right? His time with the Browns was, sadly, just defined by injuries. A hamstring problem, then a devastating torn quad that cost him 14 games in 2022, and then a knee injury after that. All told, he missed 24 out of a possible 52 games. It just totally killed his momentum, and it's a stark reminder of the crazy physical toll this game takes on these guys.
Okay, so Walker's retirement, it's not just a chance for us to look back and get all nostalgic. It actually works as this perfect, timely spotlight on a very real, very current problem that the Indianapolis Colts are staring right in the face. His exit from the league really just highlights a growing and frankly worrying need on their roster.
So let's break this down. The linebacker room is looking, dangerously thin. It all starts with the massive hole left when they traded away Zaire Franklin. Now sure, signing Akeem Davis-Gaither is a decent move. It reunites him with his old D coordinator, but come on, he can't fix this all by himself. Your projected starter, Jalen Carlese, he's got a pretty worrying injury history. Missed 14 games last season, 21 in his first 2 years. And then beyond him, you got Austin Ajiake, who's played a grand total of 157 snaps in his entire career. You see the pattern here? It's a group just defined by inexperience and major injury questions. This isn't just about depth anymore. This could be an anchor that weighs down the entire defense.
And this quote just perfectly captures the whole vibe of the problem. It's not just that the linebackers are a weak spot. It's that the Colts' #1 tool for fixing it, the NFL draft, is already handicapped. Remember, they gave up their 1st-round pick in that huge franchise-changing trade for Sauce Gardner. And look, that's a move you make 10 times out of 10, no question. But the consequence, the trade-off, is this feeling of real anxiety with the draft right around the corner and these obvious glaring holes just sitting there on the roster.
So this is it. This is the million-dollar question for Chris Ballard and the entire Colts front office. This is the stuff that keeps general managers up at night. You've got major needs that you almost always address with those premium, high-value draft picks. But you don't have a first-rounder. You only have 2 picks in the top 100. So how in the world do you pull off a successful draft with such limited ammo? It really feels like an impossible task.
All right, before we get into the blueprint that could solve this whole puzzle, just a quick note on how you can help support what we do here. We've put together some really fun NFL-themed coloring books. They're perfect for kids, grandkids, hey, even for adults. Help support the channel by grabbing one. You can get to them through the link in the description or just by using the QR code on your screen. We really appreciate the support. Okay, now let's get back to the draft. All right, so how do you solve a problem like the Colts draft situation? Where's the blueprint? How do you turn all that fan anxiety into actual, tangible assets? Well, according to one really detailed mock draft, the plan kicks off with a move that should surprise absolutely no one who's been following this team. It's a classic Chris Ballard special. When in doubt, you trade back. I mean, it's practically a reflex for this front office. So in this simulation, the Colts are on the clock at pick 47, but the board just doesn't feel right. The value isn't there, so they start taking calls. And who's on the line? The Green Bay Packers, with a deal that makes a ton of sense. The Colts ship pick 47 over to Green Bay. In return, they only move back 5 little spots to pick 52, but, and this is the crucial part, they pick up a whole extra 5th-round pick. So the key takeaway is simple. You turn 1 pick into 2. You're accumulating capital so you can address more needs. It's the perfect opening chess move. So, with that extra 5th rounder now safely tucked away, it's time to get to work rebuilding this roster. Let's do a deep dive here. We're going to go pick by pick and break down this potential 7-round haul that could seriously reshape the Colts' future. Right out of the gate, after that trade, they just attacked their biggest needs. At pick 52, boom, they grabbed their linebacker of the future, Josiah Trotter from Missouri. He directly fills that gaping hole we were just talking about. The scouting report on him says he has an off-the-charts football IQ, the kind of guy who could be wearing the green dot, the helmet with the radio to call the plays from week 1. Then, in round 3, they add Jayashan Barham, an edge rusher from Michigan with, and I love this phrase, intoxicating upside. This pick is huge because a better pass rush makes life so much easier for a thin linebacker core. And then in the 4th, they finally address that terrifying O-line depth by taking Trey Zune, a versatile Swiss Army knife who can play tackle or kick inside to guard. That is critical insurance for your franchise quarterback.
All right, moving into the 5th round, this is where this mock draft gets really juicy. The problem is simple. Michael Pittman Jr. is gone. That leaves a massive hole at wide receiver. The proposed solution? At pick 156, they grab Dejon Stribling from Ole Miss. Now, this isn't just some depth piece. This is a player who could immediately compete to start. He's described as an absolute technician running routes and a total nightmare for defenders after he catches the ball. Getting a potential starting receiver this late, the source calls that an absolute steal.
Now remember that extra 5th-round pick they got from the Packers? Well, with it, they make a truly fascinating move. They take a quarterback. Okay, deep breaths, everybody. With all the trade rumors swirling around Anthony Richardson, the QB room is kind of up in the air. So taking a low-risk, high-upside flyer on Clemson's Cade Klubnik is framed here as a total no-brainer. And let's not forget, before the 2025 season, there was real talk about Klubnik being a potential #1 overall pick. The talent is absolutely there. This move is all about buying a lottery ticket with a potentially huge payout, adding competition and a valuable asset without spending a premium pick. And they finish off the draft by just adding quality depth and competition across the board. In the 6th round, they snag Robert Spears Jennings, a safety from Oklahoma, who was described as an elite athlete and a violently physical run stopper. You'll love to hear that. Worst case scenario, he's a monster on special teams. Best case, he pushes for a starting job and just adds some real toughness to the secondary. Then, to wrap it all up, they make a little trade-up, bundling their last 2 picks to go get Jamarian Miller, a bowling ball-type running back from Alabama to compete for that backup spot behind Jonathan Taylor. These late picks are all about building a deep, competitive 53-man roster, from top to bottom. So after all that wheeling and dealing, the trade back, the strategic picks, the high upside gambles, you gotta ask the big question, right? Did the blueprint actually work? What's the final verdict on this draft strategy for a team that was in such a tough spot?
The A to Z Sports mock draft simulator that was used here handed this entire draft class a solid B grade. Now, a B might not sound like it's going to blow you away, but you have to remember the context. No first-round pick. Given those circumstances, the real insight here is that a B is a major, major success. It's proof that you can navigate a really difficult situation and still come out ahead.
And this right here, this really hammers home the ultimate takeaway. This mock draft is being called a massive win for Indy. They took a really challenging situation, very limited draft capital, and through smart strategy, especially that trade back, they turned it into this promising group of young players that fills key needs and has tremendous upside. It just goes to show you that it is possible to survive and maybe even thrive in a draft without that coveted first-round pick.
But all of that leaves us with one final big question that I want to put to all of you. Looking at this group of players, a smart linebacker, a high-upside pass rusher, O-line depth, a steal at receiver, a lottery ticket QB, is this haul truly enough to not just survive paying the price for Sauce Gardner, but to actually push this team forward and build a real contender? I really want to know what you think, so let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching this deep dive on NFL Nexus. We'll see you next time.